In August 2024, in the remote mountains of Wyoming's Wind River Ranges, a search and rescue drone equipped with cutting-edge technology captured images that would finally solve one of the most intriguing mysteries in the American livestock industry. What the cameras revealed in the inaccessible depths of the mountain range would finally explain what had happened to Danielle Martinez and the $900,000 that disappeared along with her in September 2020. For 4 years, the Martinez family, ranch employees, and federal investigators wondered how one of Wyoming's most experienced and successful cattle ranchers could simply vanish, leaving behind an agricultural empire valued at nearly $1 million and no clues about her whereabouts. For 4 years, they scoured thousands of square kilometers of wilderness without finding a single reliable piece of evidence. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the Pate channel and ring the bell so you won't miss our upcoming cases. Today, we'll unravel a mystery that combines the harsh life of the American West with modern technology, revealing how sometimes the answers we seek are literally beyond our reach, hidden in places where only the most advanced technology can venture. This is the story of a woman who built an empire with her own hands in America's wildest lands, of an investigation that challenged even mountain search and rescue specialists, and of how drone technology finally brought answers that forever changed the understanding of a case that seemed impossible to solve. Prepare to discover the truth about a disappearance that revealed secrets buried in Wyoming's most remote mountains. Danielle Martinez was 42 years old in September 2020, but she had already spent more than half her life building one of Wyoming's most respected and profitable cattle ranches. With her brown hair always pulled back in a practical braid and her green eyes that reflected the iron determination necessary to survive in the livestock industry, Danielle was known throughout Fremont County as a force of nature who had transformed a modest rural property into a $900,000 empire. Her height of 1 meter 72 centimeters and athletic build were the result of decades of intense physical work. From feeding cattle in Wyoming snowstorms to repairing fences on rugged mountainous terrain, Danielle always wore her brown leather cowboy boots, a gift from her late father that she had resoled at least 6 times in 20 years, and her characteristic cowboy hat that protected her from both the scorching summer sun and the freezing winter winds. Danielle's journey to becoming one of Wyoming's most successful cattle ranchers had begun humbly. Born and raised in Fremont County itself, she was the daughter of Miguel Martinez, a Mexican-American cowboy who worked his entire life on other people's ranches, and Maria Martinez, a rural school teacher who supplemented the family income with sewing and gardening work. Danielle always knew she wanted to have her own land, Miguel recalled years later. From 8 years old, she talked about having a ranch where she could raise cattle the right way. While other children played, she was learning about animal nutrition, pasture rotation, and herd management. At 18, Danielle used her savings from summer jobs and a substantial bank loan to purchase 150 acres of seemingly unproductive land on the slopes of the Wind River Ranges. The property had been rejected by other buyers due to the rugged terrain and lack of easy access, but Danielle saw potential where others saw obstacles. During the first 5 years, she worked alone building fences, installing water systems, and gradually improving the property with every penny she could save. She slept in a small trailer and cooked on a camp stove, reinvesting every dollar of profit back into the land and cattle. Those first years were brutal, remembered her nearest neighbor, Robert Anderson. Danielle worked 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. In winter, she was frequently isolated for weeks due to snow, but she always found a way to care for the cattle. It was a determination I had never seen before. The growth of the Martinez Ranch was methodical and impressive. By 2010, she had expanded to 500 acres and maintained a herd of 200 head of cattle. By 2015, the property covered 1,200 acres with 450 head of registered cattle that were sought after by buyers throughout the American West due to their superior quality. Danielle had specialized in premium quality Black Angus cattle, developing breeding and management techniques that produced exceptionally healthy and valuable animals. Her cattle routinely sold for prices 30% above market average due to the quality reputation she had meticulously built over 2 decades. Danielle wasn't just a cattle rancher. She was a scientist, explained Dr. Patricia Johnson, a veterinarian who had worked with the Martinez Ranch for 15 years. She kept detailed records of each animal, studied bovine genetics, and implemented sustainable management techniques that were years ahead of the industry. Her cattle were consistently the healthiest I treated. In 2020, the Martinez Ranch was valued at approximately $900,000, including land, cattle, equipment, and facilities. Danielle had built this financial empire without partners, substantial loans, or significant external help. A remarkable feat in an industry dominated by multi-generational family operations and massive agricultural corporations. Despite her financial success, Danielle maintained a modest and practical lifestyle. She still lived in the same simple 2-bedroom house she had built in 2005, drove a 2015 Ford F-250 pickup she bought used, and her only extravagances were high-quality ranch equipment and occasional trips to cattle conferences, where she continued learning about new techniques and technologies. Danielle never married and had no children. A conscious decision she explained by saying, "The ranch is my family and my legacy." She maintained close relationships with her parents, who still lived on the family property 20 kilometers away, and with her 3 full-time employees whom she considered more family than workers. Danielle treated all of us as partners, not as workers, said James Wilson, foreman who worked at the Martinez Ranch for 12 years. She shared profits with us at the end of each year, paid our health insurance, and always consulted us on important decisions. She was the kind of boss you find once in a lifetime. Danielle's expertise in Wyoming's mountains was legendary. She knew every valley, every trail, every spring, and every rock formation within a 50-kilometer radius of her property. During summer, she routinely took cattle to seasonal pastures at high elevations, navigating terrain that most people would consider impassable. Danielle could find lost cattle in territory that others couldn't even access, explained Sarah Thompson, a Forest Service ranger who worked with Danielle on grazing permit issues. She had an instinctive understanding of the mountains and animal behavior that came from decades of practical experience. If anyone was prepared to survive in that territory, it was her. In the years before 2020, Danielle had begun considering retirement and succession. She was exploring options to sell the ranch to someone who shared her sustainable management philosophy, or possibly establish a trust that would preserve the land for future generations of responsible cattle ranchers. Danielle frequently talked about her legacy, Miguel Martinez remembered. She wanted to ensure that all the work she had done wouldn't be wasted. The ranch represented not just her financial success, but her entire life of dedication to the land and animals. It was this experienced, determined woman, deeply connected to Wyoming's mountains, who, on the sunny morning of September 15, 2020, prepared for another day of work checking cattle in remote pastures, never imagining she was about to become the center of a mystery that would challenge search and rescue specialists for 4 years and would only be solved through the most advanced technology available. The morning of September 15th, 2020 dawned with the crystalline clarity that only Wyoming's autumn can provide. The temperature was 8 degrees Celsius at 6 in the morning, with a forecast to reach 22 degrees in the afternoon. Perfect conditions for cattle checking work in high-altitude pastures. For Danielle Martinez, it was the kind of day she most appreciated. Clear skies, excellent visibility, and ideal temperatures for a long journey in the mountains. Danielle had awakened at 5:30 in the morning, as she always did during autumn grazing season. She spent the first 40 minutes checking weather reports, consulting topographic maps of her remote pastures, and preparing equipment for a full day in the mountains. Her routine was meticulous: GPS, satellite radio, first aid kit, fence repair tools, water and food supplies for 12 hours, and ammunition for the .30-06 rifle she carried as protection against wildlife. At 6:15, Danielle met with her 3 main employees: James Wilson, foreman for 12 years, Marcus Rodriguez, cattle management specialist, and Kevin Anderson, responsible for equipment maintenance at the ranch office to review the day's plans. She delegated responsibilities for operations near the ranch, while explaining that she would spend the day checking the herd of 85 head that was grazing in Bear Creek Meadows, a remote area 18 kilometers away and 600 meters above the main ranch elevation. Danielle was particularly focused that day, James Wilson remembered. She had received reports that some animals were dispersing more than usual, possibly due to predator pressure or changes in grazing conditions. She wanted to personally assess the situation and determine if we needed to move the herd earlier than planned. During the morning briefing, Danielle reviewed communication protocols she followed religiously during solo expeditions. She would make radio check-ins every 2 hours, reporting her location and status. If she encountered problems requiring assistance, she would activate an emergency beacon that would instantly alert the ranch office and county emergency services. At 7 o'clock, Danielle loaded her Ford F-250 with supplies and drove toward Bear Creek Meadows, following a dirt road she had built herself over a decade. The road wound through progressively steeper mountainous terrain and ended at a clearing where she would leave the vehicle and continue on foot or horseback for the final 5 kilometers to the pastures. Marcus Rodriguez was the last person to see Danielle before she departed for the mountains. He was repairing a fence near the main gate when she passed at 7:15, waving and shouting, "I'll be back before dinner," through the truck window. She seemed completely normal, cheerful, confident, prepared for another day of work, Marcus recalled. Danielle's first radio communication arrived exactly at 9 o'clock, as scheduled. "Base, this is Danielle. Arriving at parking zone, all equipment functioning, excellent weather conditions. Starting hike to pastures in 5 minutes." James Wilson responded, confirming receipt of the message and reminding her of the next check-in at 11 o'clock. During the following 2 hours, Danielle followed familiar trails through dense forests of pine and fir, gradually gaining elevation as she headed toward Bear Creek Meadows. The terrain was challenging but not dangerous for someone with her experience. Occasional ravines, loose rocks, and steep slopes that required constant attention but were navigable for an experienced mountaineer. At 11 o'clock, Danielle made her second scheduled check-in. "Base, this is Danielle. Reached the pastures, located the main herd. All animals appear healthy. Going to start detailed count and fence condition. Check. Next contact at 1300. Her voice sounded clear and without any indication of problems or concern. During the following 2 hours, James Wilson assumed Danielle was conducting her usual meticulous cattle verification. She frequently spent hours walking through pastures, inspecting each animal individually, checking water and grazing conditions, and repairing damaged sections of temporary fence that kept cattle in designated areas. It was at 1300 that everything began to go wrong. The time for the third check-in passed without communication from Danielle. James Wilson waited 15 minutes before trying to contact her. "Danielle, this is base. Please respond." Silence. He repeated the attempt 3 times at 5-minute intervals without receiving a response. At 13:30, James Wilson made the decision to drive to the point where Danielle had left her pickup to check if there was any problem with equipment or if she had returned to the vehicle for some reason. Arriving at the location at 14:15, he found the Ford F-250 exactly where Danielle had parked it, locked and without signs of disturbance. "The truck was normal, but that made me more worried, not less," Wilson explained. "If Danielle had had a mechanical problem or changed plans, she would have returned to the vehicle. The fact that it was untouched meant something had happened to her in the pastures or during the hike." At 14:45, Wilson made the decision to follow the trail toward Bear Creek Meadows, shouting Danielle's name and trying to contact her by radio every few minutes. He reached the pastures at 15:30 and found the cattle herd grazing peacefully, but no sign of Danielle. At 1600 on September 15, 2020, James Wilson made the call that would change everything. He contacted the Fremont County Sheriff's Office to report Danielle Martinez's disappearance. "We have an experienced cattle rancher who didn't return from a cattle check in the mountains and isn't responding to radio communications," he told the emergency operator. Detective Sergeant Patricia Williams was assigned to coordinate the initial response. With 15 years of experience in search and rescue operations in Wyoming, Williams immediately understood the seriousness of the situation. When an experienced mountain person stops making scheduled check-ins and doesn't return at the expected time, you have a very small window before weather conditions or other factors make the situation critical, she explained. The first search and rescue team arrived at Bear Creek Meadows at 18:30, just 2 hours before sunset. The team of 6 specialized rangers conducted a systematic search of the immediate area around the pastures, looking for signs of footprints, discarded equipment, or any evidence of Danielle's recent presence. During the 2 remaining hours of light, the team found clear boot prints that corresponded to the size and pattern of the boots Danielle wore. The footprints followed a logical pattern through the pastures, indicating she had conducted a systematic cattle check as planned. But the footprints simply disappeared in a rocky area near the northeast edge of the pastures. The footprints reached a rock formation and then nothing, explained Ranger Captain Mark Thompson, who led the initial search. There was no evidence of a fall, struggle, or any type of accident. It was as if she had simply evaporated on rocky terrain. The search was suspended overnight for safety, but was resumed at dawn on September 16th with an expanded team of 24 people, including specialized rangers, experienced mountain volunteers, and tracking dogs trained for person searches. The operation also included a rescue helicopter that systematically covered the area from an aerial viewpoint. During the second day of searches, investigators made a significant discovery. Approximately 800 meters from the pastures, in a ravine partially hidden by dense vegetation, they found Danielle's satellite radio. The equipment was damaged, with clear signs of impact against rocks, but subsequent technical analysis revealed it had been used to attempt an emergency transmission at 12:47, just 13 minutes before her third scheduled check-in. The radio was clearly used in an attempt to call for help, explained electronics technician Robert Chen. But due to damage to the equipment and the mountainous topography of the region, the transmission never reached our communication tower. This suggests Danielle encountered some type of danger quickly after her second successful check-in. The investigation quickly expanded to include analysis of Danielle's personal and commercial finances. Detective Williams wanted to rule out possibilities of voluntary disappearance, financial problems that could have motivated intentional disappearance, or creditor threats that could have resulted in kidnapping. Financial analysis revealed that Danielle was in excellent economic condition. Her commercial and personal bank accounts totaled approximately $180,000 in cash. She had no significant debts beyond a mortgage with current payments, and the ranch was conservatively valued at $900,000. There was no evidence of financial problems, suspicious transactions, or unusual activity in any of her accounts. Danielle Martinez was at the peak of her financial success, Williams observed. She had built a profitable business, maintained excellent credit, and her finances were meticulously organized. There were no economic motives for voluntary disappearance. A particularly intriguing discovery came when investigators examined Danielle's will and succession documents. They revealed she had updated her will just 3 months before the disappearance, establishing a complex trust that would divide her assets among her parents, long-term employees, and environmental conservation organizations. The will indicated long-term planning, not preparation for escape, Williams explained. Someone who is planning to disappear voluntarily doesn't establish complex trusts to benefit other people. Danielle was clearly planning to stay and continue building her legacy. During the first week of searches, more than 85 people participated in operations, covering 40 square kilometers of mountainous territory. Ground teams scoured ravines, rock formations, and dense vegetation areas, while helicopters systematically covered the entire region using thermal cameras and advanced detection equipment. The search was complicated by the extremely challenging terrain of the Wind River Ranges. Elevations varying from 2,100 to 3,400 meters, deep ravines, dense forests, and complex rock formations created thousands of locations where a person could be hidden, injured, or trapped. It's the type of terrain where you can search the same area 5 times and still miss important evidence, Captain Thompson explained. After 2 intensive weeks of searches involving more than 200 volunteers and substantial resources from multiple agencies, the operation was officially reduced to active ongoing investigation status. The Martinez family, supported by the local community, continued organizing private searches for months, but none produced additional evidence about Danielle's whereabouts. Investigators' initial theory focused on mountain accident, possibly a fall into a deep ravine, wildlife injury, or disorientation that led Danielle into even more remote territory where she succumbed to the elements. The terrain is unforgiving, Detective Williams observed. Even for someone with Danielle's experience, a misstep or unexpected encounter with wildlife could quickly become fatal. The impact of the disappearance on the Martinez Ranch was immediate and devastating. James Wilson and the employee team took over daily operations, but without Danielle's leadership and expertise, the business struggled to maintain its profitability and reputation. Danielle wasn't just the owner. She was the heart and brain of the entire operation, Wilson explained. The Danielle Martinez case became one of the most studied disappearances in Wyoming's history, generating theories ranging from mountain accidents to more exotic possibilities involving kidnapping or even rare wildlife sightings. But for everyone involved in the investigation, the central question remained terrifyingly simple. How had one of Wyoming's most experienced and prepared mountaineers disappeared without leaving a single reliable trace in territory she knew better than any living person? The years following Danielle Martinez's disappearance were marked by an unshakable determination that consumed not only her family, but the entire rural Wyoming. community that had witnessed her impressive journey of building a cattle empire. For those who knew Danielle personally, the impossibility of finding any clue about her fate became an obsession that redefined their lives and transformed the search for answers into a decades-long mission. Miguel and Maria Martinez, Danielle's parents, could never accept that their daughter had simply disappeared in the mountains. She knew better than any living person. During the first 2 years after 2020, they spent almost all their retirement savings, more than $85,000, financing private search expeditions, hiring mountain search and rescue specialists, and even consulting Native American trackers who claimed to have special abilities to find people lost in wilderness territory. "We knew Danielle hadn't simply gotten lost," Miguel explained with conviction. "She knew every rock, every trail, every spring in those mountains. If she didn't come back, it was because something extraordinary happened, something beyond her control or knowledge." Maria Martinez developed a persistent theory that Danielle had been kidnapped by people interested in her $900,000 cattle empire. She was a woman alone, controlling almost $1 million in assets, Maria rationalized. Someone could have planned to take her to force property transfer or access to bank accounts. James Wilson, the foreman who had worked with Danielle for 12 years, reluctantly assumed daily management of the Martinez ranch with the hope that she would eventually return to reclaim her property. For 4 years, Wilson maintained operations exactly as Danielle had established, refusing purchase offers and preserving every aspect of the business according to her instructions. Danielle had built something special, Wilson explained. It wasn't just a ranch. It was a model of how sustainable cattle ranching should function. I felt it was my responsibility to keep her legacy alive until she returned or until we knew definitively what had happened to her. Wilson organized seasonal searches for 4 consecutive years, coordinating with local volunteers to systematically cover different sections of the Wind River Ranges during favorable weather periods. He spent more than $45,000 of his own financial resources funding these expeditions, always hoping that seasonal changes in vegetation or weather conditions might reveal previously hidden evidence. Wyoming's cattle ranching community was deeply impacted by Danielle's disappearance. She had become a symbol that determination and hard work could still create success in the modern cattle industry. And her loss represented not only a personal tragedy, but also the destruction of an inspiring model for other rural producers. Danielle proved you didn't need to inherit land or have family connections to succeed in cattle ranching, explained Robert Thompson, president of the EE-CHUB, Wyoming Cattlemen's Association. She built everything herself through intelligence, hard work, and respect for the land. Her disappearance was a loss for our entire industry. The official investigation continued active for 2 years, from 2020 to 2022, but resources dedicated to the case gradually diminished as other priorities emerged. Detective Patricia Williams worked obsessively on the case until her retirement in 2023, conducting annual evidence reviews and following occasional leads that arose from reported sightings or new search technologies. The Danielle Martinez case taught me humility about the limitations of traditional investigation, Williams reflected. Sometimes the terrain simply swallows people and doesn't return them, no matter how many resources or technology you dedicate to searches. Theories about the disappearance evolved significantly over the years. Initially, investigators focused on conventional mountain accidents, falls, wildlife attacks, or disorientation. In 2022, when all these possibilities had been exhaustively explored, more complex theories emerged. Dr. Sarah Johnson, a specialist in human behavior in wilderness environments at the University of Wyoming, developed a theory in 2023 that Danielle might have discovered something in the mountains, perhaps illegal activity like poaching, drug cultivation, or smuggling operations, that put her in danger. The Wind River Ranges have a history of use by groups that prefer to remain hidden from the law, Dr. Johnson explained. This theory gained credibility when, in 2023, a federal operation discovered an abandoned methamphetamine laboratory approximately 15 kilometers from Bear Creek Meadows. Although there was no direct evidence connecting the discovery to Danielle's disappearance, it demonstrated that criminal activities were occurring in the general region during the relevant period. The financial value of $900,000 in assets that Danielle had left behind continued to be a central mystery of the case. Investigators never found evidence that anyone had attempted to access her bank accounts, transfer ranch property, or in any way financially benefit from her disappearance. If someone kidnapped Danielle for financial motives, they never tried to capitalize on the crime, observed Detective Captain Michael Davis, who took over the case after Williams's retirement. Her accounts remained untouched. No one tried to forge property transfer documents, and the ranch continued operating under employee management. This suggests money wasn't the motive. The technological impact of the case was significant. Danielle's disappearance catalyzed investments in more advanced search and rescue technologies in Wyoming, including improved drone systems, more sensitive heat detection equipment, and enhanced communication protocols for people working in remote areas. Wyoming Search and Rescue implemented new protocols requiring GPS tracking devices for anyone working alone in remote territory, automated check-in systems that alert authorities if scheduled communications don't occur, and rapid response teams specialized in extreme mountainous terrain. Danielle's case forced us to rethink how we protect people working in remote areas, Captain Thompson explained. We implemented systems that could have saved her life if they had existed in 2020. Christina Wilson had joined Wyoming Search and Rescue in 2023 as a drone technology specialist, bringing military experience in aerial reconnaissance operations and knowledge of detection equipment that wasn't available during the original searches for Danielle Martinez. In August 2024, Wilson was assigned to conduct a technological review of unsolved cases using cutting-edge drones equipped with high-resolution cameras, advanced thermal sensors, and surface penetration technology. Cases like Danielle Martinez's are ideal for re-evaluation with modern technology, Wilson explained. Drones can access areas that are dangerous or impossible for ground teams, and modern sensors can detect evidence that would be invisible to conventional searches. Wilson began her investigation by meticulously reviewing all maps, aerial photographs, and search reports from the original 2020 operations. She identified at least 12 areas within a 10-kilometer radius of Bear Creek Meadows that had never been completely explored due to terrain hazards or inaccessibility for ground teams. The morning of August 23, 2024 was clear and calm, with ideal atmospheric conditions for long-duration drone operations. Wilson launched her DJI Matrice 350 RTK, equipped with a Zen Muse H20T camera, at 7:30 in the morning, beginning a systematic search pattern that would cover previously inaccessible areas in high resolution. During the first 4 hours, the drone documented complex rock formations, deep ravines, and dense vegetation areas that had never been seen up close by investigators. Wilson operated the equipment remotely from a base station established at Bear Creek Meadows, monitoring real-time video feeds while the drone autonomously navigated through pre-programmed coordinates. It was at 11:47 in the morning, when the drone was investigating a particularly deep and narrow ravine 6.2 kilometers northeast of the pastures, that the cameras captured something that made Wilson immediately call for reinforcements. Partially hidden under vegetation that had grown during 4 years, the thermal feed revealed contours that were clearly man-made objects, not natural formations. Initially, I thought it might be trash left by hunters or discarded equipment, Wilson recalled. But when I adjusted the camera settings and increased resolution, I could see there were multiple objects organized in a way that suggested prolonged human presence. Wilson directed the drone to fly lower, using its most advanced sensors to map the area in detail. What she discovered was a small protected area at the bottom of the ravine where someone had clearly established a temporary camp. There were remains of a tent, scattered equipment, and what appeared to be personal belongings preserved by the dry conditions of the ravine. More significantly, the high-resolution cameras captured images of clothing and equipment that exactly matched descriptions of items Danielle was wearing and carrying on the day of her disappearance. Wilson could clearly see brown cowboy boots, fragments of blue denim, and what appeared to be a leather backpack that corresponded to the description of gear Danielle took on long-duration expeditions. When I saw those items, I immediately knew I had found evidence related to Danielle's disappearance, Wilson said. The location of the ravine perfectly explained why 4 years of ground searches had failed. It was literally hidden from view even from helicopters and was accessible only through dangerous technical climbing. Wilson immediately expanded the drone operation to completely map the ravine and surrounding areas. What she discovered painted a detailed picture of Danielle Martinez's final days. The evidence suggested she had fallen into the ravine, possibly due to an unstable edge section that had collapsed but had survived the initial fall. The improvised camp in the ravine indicated that Danielle had attempted to establish shelter and signal for rescue for several days. Wilson could see remains of small fires, signs where she had tried to climb the steep ravine walls, and even rocks organized in patterns that could have been signaling attempts for aircraft. Danielle had survived the fall and fought to escape for days, possibly a week or more. Wilson concluded based on analysis of the visual evidence. She used all her survival skills, but the ravine was simply too deep and steep for her to climb alone, especially if she was injured. At 14:30, Wilson contacted Detective Captain Michael Davis to report the discovery. "I've found definitive evidence related to the Danielle Martinez case," she communicated. "I need a specialized mountain recovery team to access a location that's approximately 60 meters below ground level in an extremely steep ravine." The response was quick and coordinated. At 1600, a specialized mountain rescue team had arrived at the location, followed 2 hours later by Detective Davis, medical examiner Dr. Amanda Martinez, and forensic specialists. Access to the ravine required specialized rappelling equipment and several hours of preparation to ensure evidence wouldn't be contaminated during the descent. Evidence recovery took 3 full days. Each item was carefully documented, photographed in situ, and removed using rigorous forensic protocols. Among the objects recovered were Danielle's characteristic boots, fragments of her clothing, ranch equipment she carried, and skeletal remains that preliminary analysis confirmed as belonging to an adult woman compatible with Danielle's age and physical structure. Evidence preservation was remarkable due to the dry and protected conditions of the ravine, Dr. Martinez explained. "We could reconstruct not only the final events, but also Danielle's heroic attempts to survive and escape an impossible situation." Official confirmation that the remains belonged to Danielle Martinez came through DNA analysis on August 30th, 2024, 1 week after the initial discovery. Miguel and Maria Martinez were personally notified by Detective Davis in a conversation they described as the end of 4 years of nightmare, but also the closure we needed to begin proper mourning. Knowing that Danielle fought to survive until the end, that she used all her skills but faced a situation beyond any human capacity to overcome, gives us a strange peace, Miguel Martinez said. She died being exactly who she always was, a fighter who never gave up. The discovery instantly transformed the missing person case into an accidental death investigation. Detective Davis coordinated final analyses to determine if external factors had contributed to Danielle's fall into the ravine, but evidence indicated it was a tragic accident, a ravine edge collapse that could have happened to anyone, regardless of experience or preparation. Complete forensic analysis of evidence found in the ravine revealed a sequence of events, both heroic and heartbreaking, about Danielle Martinez's final days. Dr. Amanda Martinez worked for 6 weeks with a team of specialists to reconstruct exactly what had happened after 12:47 on September 15, 2020, using physical evidence, terrain analysis, and cutting-edge forensic technology to create a definitive account of the final moments of one of Wyoming's most respected cattle ranchers. Geological analysis of the ravine revealed that Danielle had been the victim of a rare but well-documented natural phenomenon in the Wind River Ranges: sudden collapse of rocky cornice. The edge of the ravine where she was walking had been undermined by underground erosion for decades, creating an unstable structure that appeared solid but was ready to collapse under minimal weight. Danielle was doing everything right, explained Dr. Robert Chen, a geologist specializing in Wyoming rock formations. She was following a trail she had used dozens of times before, in an area that seemed completely safe. The cornice collapse was a geologically unpredictable event that no amount of experience or preparation could have anticipated. Event reconstruction showed that Danielle had fallen approximately 18 meters when the rocky edge gave way under her feet. At 12:47, explaining why her satellite radio had transmitted an emergency signal at that exact time. Injury analysis indicated she had suffered a fracture in her right ankle and possible mild concussion, but nothing immediately fatal. Danielle survived the fall and maintained sufficient consciousness to attempt multiple escape and rescue strategies, Dr. Martinez explained. Evidence in the ravine shows she established shelter, rationed limited supplies, tried to climb the ravine walls several times, and organized visual signals hoping to attract attention from search aircraft. The most touching discovery was an improvised diary Danielle had kept using pages torn from a small notebook she carried for cattle notes. Writing with a pencil that was in her backpack, she meticulously documented her final 9 days, recording escape attempts, resource management, and even observations about wildlife she observed from the ravine. Day 3, tried climbing the east wall again. Today, managed to get about 4 meters up before falling, she had written. Ankle is getting worse, but I can still move. Conserving water from the small spring I found. If anyone finds this, tell Mom and Dad I tried to come home. Subsequent entries revealed the indomitable spirit that had made Danielle a legend in the cattle community. For 9 days, she systematically tried different escape strategies, built elaborate stone signals that would be visible from above, and maintained hope even when her situation became desperate. Day 7. Heard helicopters today, managed to light a small fire, but I don't think they saw me, she wrote. I won't give up. The ranch needs me, and I still have so much work to do. James will take care of the cattle until I get back. Final analyses indicated that Danielle had succumbed to exposure and dehydration on the 9th day after the fall, despite her heroic efforts to survive with minimal resources. Her death was peaceful, occurring during sleep, in her improvised shelter she had built with branches and her own jacket. Danielle died doing exactly what she had done her entire life, fighting with determination until the end, said Miguel Martinez during an emotional interview. She faced an impossible situation with the same courage and intelligence she used to build her cattle empire. We couldn't be more proud of who she was. The revelation about the $900,000 in assets Danielle had left behind was resolved through analysis of her updated will. As planned, her property was divided among her parents, 40%, long-term ranch employees, 35%, and environmental conservation organizations, 25%. James Wilson received the largest individual portion beyond family, recognizing his loyalty and dedication during 4 years of uncertainty. Danielle had meticulously planned to ensure her legacy would continue, even if something happened to her, explained attorney Sarah Johnson, who had helped Danielle establish the trust. She wanted the land to remain productive and the people who had helped build her success to be adequately rewarded. Wilson made the decision to continue operating the Martinez Ranch as a family business, maintaining the sustainable methods Danielle had developed and honoring her memory through preservation of her innovative practices. The ranch became a model studied by agricultural universities as an example of successful sustainable cattle ranching. Danielle built something greater than a business, Wilson explained. She created a model of how to treat land, animals, and people with respect. Continuing her work is the best way to honor her memory. Christina Wilson, the drone specialist who made the discovery, established a training program dedicated to using advanced drone technology for search and rescue cases in mountainous terrain. The Danielle Martinez program has already trained 47 specialized drone operators and resulted in locating 12 missing people in Wyoming and neighboring states. Danielle's discovery demonstrated the transformative potential of drone technology for investigations in impossible terrain, Christina Wilson explained. We can now access areas that were previously completely inaccessible for searches, potentially saving future lives. Wyoming's Department of Fish and Wildlife implemented new safety protocols as a direct result of lessons learned from the Danielle Martinez case. All people working alone in remote territory are now required to carry GPS tracking devices with emergency transmission capability, and automated systems alert authorities if scheduled check-ins don't occur. In October 2024, Danielle Martinez was finally buried in Lander, Wyoming Cemetery, in a ceremony that attracted more than 600 people from the cattle community, national park employees, and search and rescue specialists. Her headstone says simply, Danielle Martinez, 1978 to 2020. Built an empire, left a legacy, fought until the end. The ravine where Danielle was found was preserved as a memorial site and educational landmark about hidden dangers in Wyoming's mountains. A plaque installed at the upper location of the ravine warns about risks of cornice collapse and serves as a reminder that even the most experienced mountaineers can face unpredictable dangers. This place represents both the danger and beauty of Wyoming's mountains, said Captain Thompson during the memorial dedication ceremony. Danielle loved these mountains and died in them, but her passion for the land and determination to never give up will continue inspiring people for generations. The case established important precedents for missing person investigations in mountainous terrain. Agencies throughout the American West now incorporate drone technology as a standard tool for searches in areas previously considered inaccessible, and the Martinez Protocol requires periodic reviews of unsolved cases using emerging technology. The Wyoming Cattlemen's Association established an annual scholarship in Danielle's name for agriculture students interested in sustainable cattle ranching. The Danielle Martinez Memorial Scholarship has already assisted 23 young cattle ranchers in obtaining university education and returning to their rural communities with modern knowledge about land and cattle management. Danielle proved that one determined person can create lasting, positive change, said Robert Thompson during the annual scholarship ceremony. Her life demonstrated that success in cattle ranching comes from respecting the land, treating animals humanely, and never giving up on your principles, even when facing extreme adversity. After 4 years of agonizing mystery, Danielle Martinez finally rests in peace in the mountains she loved, knowing that her legacy of $900,000 in assets is being used exactly as she would have wished, to continue the work of sustainable cattle ranching and help other people achieve success through hard work and dedication to the land. Her story remains as testimony that determination and integrity can create legacies that endure far beyond any individual's lifetime.